China is for China. China is not for Africa. Yo, man. Yo, welcome to FKU Africa Podcast. This is your host, Maneza F8, coming to you live here in Worcester, in the Western Cape, man. We're keeping it real, we're keeping it cool here, man. Man, this week was a big week for us as Africans. As you know, we're celebrating an Africa Day. It was on the 25th of May, as usual, as every year. Last year, we have an episode about it, explaining what is it all about, what is happening, what have happened back in the days, and which other countries are busy with it, celebrating it on a yearly basis. South Africa is part of those that is celebrating it, but there's no public holiday for it. There's certain countries that they do. If you want to know more about the Africa Day, go back to the episode that I will share on the screen for you guys, and I will also share the link so that you will know which episode to check out. What all about the Africa Day. As you know, just a brief about it. Africa Day was formed in 1963 I would say in Addis Ababa, I think Ethiopia, during the times where it was organized by the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, uh, Nyeketa, Patrice Lubambo, all these heroes that are big and are known in Pan-African world. Those were the founders and the formers of the Pan-African movement that was uh, installed into us as Africans, just knowing who you are, your black consciousness, and just thinking of you or of all Africans as Africans, breaking down of borders, move freely in Africa, free trades all across Africa. I did explain all these things in the previous episode. What is the benefit of free trade in whole Africa? What is the benefit of for you as a person? Like if you are a YouTuber, if you are in the mainstream as an artist, if your song is viewed by the whole Africa, which means you have billion viewers, uh, if not all, but at least you will be known by a certain number of people in Africa. If it's your TV show is on a national uh, TV show, like if Africa is one, it's viewed close to be a billion people. TVs around Africa. So it's a very beneficial for us and sharing of resources and all these things that we have in Africa to make us all rich, to make us all compatible with the others in the African or in the global stage when it comes to developing and mining of resources that we have in different countries here in Africa. To put them together, we will be a super large, we will be a force to be reckoned with. It's just that we don't do that, and we just playing pity parties of people must go back to where they're coming from, wara. These are unnecessary things that we're focusing on instead of focusing on building us as Africans. So, what I want to highlight about this one, about this Africa Day, the celebration here in South Africa. So, a party called EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters, which is led by CIC Julius Malema, commander in charge. That is what CIC stands for. He took it up on himself, or they took it up on themselves as the EFF to go to the embassy of France to demand France to butt out of Africa. This is the exact word that they were using. France need to butt out, to get out of Africa. And they had a memorandum that they wrote. So it was nice to see some kind of a challenge to that empire, because France is the one of the worst of the worst countries when it comes to slavery. France and England and Britain, Great Britain are one of the worst when it comes to slavery and just all the atrocities that they made, all these kind of terrible things that they did in contributing to oppression in Africa. So those are the things that we need to be enlightened of. That France was one of the worst. France is responsible for millions and millions of death of African brothers and sisters. France is responsible for a lot and lots and lots of deaths across the world, man. Not even here in Africa. France was involved in, especially in Haiti, all these islands in the middle of America, between South and North America. All these islands, Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, going further down South America, in those countries. China was not China. France was there. France was there, making sure that people are being oppressed during those times. So, and China still persist being a part of the the West and West here in Africa. They still persist. They are they have their own agenda that they are playing in the West Africa. These are the things that Muammar Gaddafi was constantly fighting for. That these people, they must get out of Africa. They must just leave Africa. This is what happened when Thomas Sankara took power in the 80s. The first thing that he did, he asked nicely that French and its dominance in Burkina Faso must get out. They must get out. I just forgot the name that they were using for Burkina Faso at that time. I think it was Upper Vault. Yeah, I think it's what Upper Vault that they were using at that time. So he get out and he changed the name from Upper Vault to Burkina Faso, and then he did all the good things that he did for his people until his second in charge killed him, and now he's being prosecuted for that. I wish that all process is over and he's jailed or killed. I don't care about him. So what I'm really talking about is the influence of China and France and America in Africa. These are the main countries who are stamping their influence and making sure that our African trade is next to nothing. They are bringing all their cheap stuff here in Africa. They're taking the stuff here and go and mold them and bring it back here, so that our all inventions, all our factories, all our industries are flat. Tomatoes are flat in Ghana, steel is flat in South Africa, chicken is flat in South Africa. Many of the resources that we have, they are flat. They put them down by bringing cheap stuff from China, France, America, and all these places. So I like what this initiative that EFF is doing. It is a political ploy. They are, of course, a political party. This thing is political for them, but the significance of these things from uh, other people who are also influenced by those kind of moves, it is very much significant. It is very much significant in a way that by making this a thing that we talk about, or a thing that we see on TV, it brings a little bit of acknowledgement of what is going on in Africa. The acknowledgement, it won't just end in that acknowledgement. Where it is going, it's going into people starting to boycott stuff, research stuff, and know more about what are the atrocities that France has been doing all over Africa, mostly in West Africa, countries like Nigeria, Mali, Cameroon, Senegal, Ghana. All these countries, Ivory Coast, all these countries are mostly predominantly French-speaking countries, which are much influenced by France. Some of these countries, they are still paying debt to France. I don't know what is the debt for. Most of them, they are still paying some kind of a money in resources to France. These things need to be talked about, and these things need to end. That's it. They just need to end. It need us as Africans to stand up and say, China, France, America, leave us alone in Africa. Let us do our own businesses. Let us do our own things as the way that we know how. That's it. No other way around. So I'm going to play you this video of AFF. It's just a compilation of that day. It's a long video, but I'll break it into pieces for you to understand what happened during that day on the 25th of May in the French embassy. French people in that embassy, they denied to come out for a while, saying that this is not the way that they do things. They can't just come out and accept this proposal or memorandum. But at the end, Malema and his fellow comrades, they managed to get them out and go and accept and also do a little bit of a speech that you will hear now in this video. So enjoy.
Viva! Viva EFF! Viva! France must go! 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 Amandla! Amandla! Forward to the unity of Africa! Forward! Forward to the unity of Africa! Forward! Thank you!
Amandla! Amandla! Un bon impérialisme français. Encore impérialisme. Un bon impérialisme français. Monsieur l'ambassadeur de France, Julien, nous sommes là pour dire France, get off from Africa! France, get off from Africa!
We now receive a representative from Mali.
We are here today. We are here today to celebrate the Day of Africa. It's 6 years, 59 years now. Africa is independent, and we wish our independence to the full independence. Mali is one of the country, the big empire like South Africa. We thank EFF for the organize this meeting, and the South African, we thank everyone to be here today. And Mali is supporting the freedom of Africa, not only in one part, in all of Africa. Mali today, we are one of the first who tell French people to go out from
Amazonia, we now call upon the last African country, the DRC, Masamba Clovis. Let's come forward. Thank you.
Good morning, fighters. I'm very, very happy to be among the fighters that are claiming the ideology of Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema. As a person from DRC, I'm here with tears in my eyes. Fighters, if you can know what is happening in DRC, it's shameful. It's not a secret that all countries in Africa that speaks French, the administration is very, very wrong because of the wrong politics of France. I'm coming from the South Kivu in the east of DRC. What happening there? There is killings of maybe 5,000 people a day. And no one is speaking about what is happening in that party. Why I'm here to join the ideology of Julius Malema as Commander-in-Chief. In 1994, the French army were deployed in Rwanda. They make sure the genocide in Rwanda happened under their watch. They supported within everything that they could do, and that thing caused the genocide, and the people flew from Rwanda to DRC.
Maneza!
Phansi France, phansi. Phansi Macron, phansi. Africa, we are one. Africa, we are one. Africa, we are one.
SG, we shouldn't waste each other's time, please. We are here to present a memorandum and we will leave. But they will have to come outside. Don't be scared. You are in a peaceful country here. We are very peaceful. Don't be cowards. Come outside. SG, we can't negotiate for long because now we'll have to call the trucks to block the roads. There are police here. Why are you scared? Police are here to protect you. Why are you scared? Scared of what? The Economic Freedom Fighters condemns all manifestations of colonialism and neo-colonialism in the entire African continent. We, as a generation of freedom fighters, reject and condemn the fact that decades after the declaration of so-called independence of former colonized territories, colonizers continue to maintain a colonial and neo-colonial relationship with African countries which are supposed to be free from colonial control. The British colonizers, the Portuguese colonizers, the Belgian colonizers, the Spanish colonizers, and all the French colonizers continue to brutally exploit, oppress, and micromanage all countries they colonized many decades ago. French colonialism in the African continent continues to be the most brutal, cruel, and devilish form of colonialism in the African continent. When countries that were under French colonial rule declared political independence, the government of France destroyed and damaged all the infrastructure and the systems that were developed through African resources and labor power because they wanted to retain total control of all the former colonies. The French colonial governments destroyed everything they were unable to loot back to their country after independence. The French colonialists banned food, killed cows, and destroyed buildings and books. The former colonies of the French regime, such as Gabon, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso, Congo-Brazzaville, Ivory Coast, Chad, Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Cameroon, and Guinea-Bissau continue to use the franc currency, and their monetary policy are dictated by the French Central Bank. France continues to maintain strong and intimidating military bases in almost all African countries they had colonial control over. African countries that were under French colonial rule are forced to pay colonial taxes and currently paying more than $500 billion to the French treasury every year. And that is separate from the many natural resources French companies continue to loot from the African continent. The colonial pact that France forced all its former colonies to enter into include the following: paying for the infrastructure France built during colonization, keeping 50% of their foreign reserves in the French treasury. 14 African countries have been doing this for years. Interestingly, these countries can only access 15% of their reserves each year. If they need more, they have to borrow it from France. France has the first right to purchase any natural resources discovered. French companies have the first right to choose on all government procurement tenders. Senior military officers are trained in France. France has the right to deploy its military in the African countries. Countries have to make French the official language and the education language, using the French colonial currency. Former colonies have to send a reserve report to France. Ex-colonies cannot enter into military alliances with other countries without approval from France. Ex-colonies are required to join forces with France during war or global crisis. The French government and regime have played a direct role in the coup d'etat and illegal and unlawful overthrow of many governments in the African continents. France is also responsible for the assassination of many prominent leaders in the African continent. Additionally, France continues to support and anchor nonsensical governments that have no respect for African people. This includes the following: Burkina Faso, which led to the assassination of Thomas Sankara; Guinea, Central African Republic, Chad. Mali's instability has always been sponsored by France. Ivory Coast illegal arrest of leaders and instability sponsored by France. The continued rulership of Paul Biya in Cameroon is financed and maintained by France. The permanent and perpetual destabilization of the Democratic Republic of Congo is aided by the French government. We commend and appreciate the work of revolutionary anti-colonial forces that are beginning to undermine French colonialism, particularly in Mali, and call on all neo-colonized people under the so-called Francophone to reject France's colonial rulership and control. We commend the many anti-colonial and pan-Africanist forces in all the African countries and reiterate our call for the unity of the African continent. Despite the micromanagement of the former colonies, the French government continuously uses its resources to corruptly influence the internal processes of electoral outcomes of Africa's continental organizations, such as the African Union and the Pan-African Parliament. France continues to identify puppets in different African countries and field them as candidates for important and strategic positions in different continental multilateral organizations. The economic freedom fighters, therefore, stands here in front of the embassy of the slave traders, the colonialists, the warmongers, and the imperialists to make the following demands. France must grant full independence to all African countries and allow them to determine their own currencies, monetary policies, and economic direction. France must stop all colonial taxes because it is the wealth of the African continent, the blood and sweat of Africans that build all infrastructure which African countries are forced to pay for many decades after the so-called independence. France must immediately remove all its military bases which is currently stationed in Africa. These include, but is not limited to, military bases, French soldiers, French aid through arms, and any presence of French influence in the armies or militia groups in Africa. France must desist from interfering in the economic affairs of African countries through monetary policy, and the use of their currency in West Africa must gradually decrease towards establishing currency system determined by Africans themselves. France must return all mineral and fiscal reserves held by the French treasury to African nations and any of their former colonies. France must pay reparations to all of its former colonies, particularly the architect of the greatest slave rebellion known to humanity, Haiti. Haiti has had its development reduced by racist global world order which feared African independence and the first black-led state. The removal of French as an official language in Africa in favor of continental reconstruction of African identity, away from imposition of white civilization standards and norms as a measure of humanity. France must stop its sponsorship of divisions that occur in Africa's continental multilateral institutions, particularly the Pan-African Parliament and the African Union. These demands are made to the government of France and sent to all colonial and neo-colonial forces in the African continent, including the United Kingdom, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Belgium, Germany, and the United States of America. All forms and manifestations of colonialism in the African continent must be dismantled. It is our obligation as a generation to work fearlessly to dismantle colonial and neo-colonial rule. The EFF will do everything in its power to destabilize all forms of colonialism in the African continent and will play an unapologetic and leading role in the dismantling of all remnants of colonialism and colonial rule in the African continent. We stand on the shoulders of great anti-colonialists, Pan-Africanists such as Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, Emperor Haile Selassie, Mandela, Thomas Sankara, and many others. The EFF expects a response to all these demands within 14 working days. If there is no believable and practical response within the 14 days, we will, as the leadership of the EFF, outline a clear and practical program on how we will undermine and counter the French continued colonialism of the African continent. I thank you. Amanda! Amanda! Comrades, we are here to hand over this memorandum to the embassy of France, which must be taken directly to the government of France. We now call the representatives of the embassy to come and sign the memorandum and acknowledge the receipt of the memorandum. Fighters, let's give the ambassador an opportunity to acknowledge the receipt of your memorandum. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good day to everyone. I want to say that we respect the EFF as a political movement. Also, I think you are very good organizers. You came to see us today, so it was normal to come out and to receive your memorandum. We cannot sign the memorandum because it's your memorandum, but we will convey the memorandum to Paris. And also, I want to say an important message, that we have our disagreement, okay? And today, France is a partner with Africa, and we are friends of the African nations. Thank you very much.
Amanda! Amanda! Down with France, down! Down with the imperialist France, down!
Oh yes, so as you can see or listen, this is what occurred during that day. So yeah, it's just that let's just make some sort of conversation. What do you think of France dominance in Africa? Do you think it is significant? Do you think it plays any part in the oppression that many countries in the West Africa and also here that are still uh I will take this no, let this ring. So let's just make some kind of a conversation where we go through all these things, man. What do you think? What are your thoughts of these big countries with their money, flashing their money, making the rules for us, doing this coup and killing our leaders from early as 1960s? What do you think we can do as Africans to get out of this imperialist, of these white supremacists who come here and takes on how we can run ourselves? So yeah, man, please subscribe if you have not. Check out the other stuff that you can on Maneza F8.co.za. That's the website where you can check things. Podcasts is all over. Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Maneza F8.co.za website, and also on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Whatever, however you got it. Fikiria kwa undani nduku. Tamako.